Thanks for tuning in to another episode of eLearning Unscripted. Today we'll be talking with Justin Seeley again. He's been with us twice before, but this round we'll be talking about unified learning solutions. Let's dive right in. Hi, Justin. It's good to have you back for the third time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, as always, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's get to it.
Sure.
My first question for you is, since we're talking a lot about unified learning solutions, what are the current trends and challenges that are driving the need for unified learning platforms?
Sure. So I think, when we say unified learning, we mean one platform that manages the entire learning journey, and that could be across multiple audiences, multiple roles, employees, customers, partners. For years, organizations have been building out training in silos, and I think you'd see, people like HR professionals buy a system for employee compliance. The partner team might set up a certification portal, customer success group. They might spin up a knowledge base or academy or something like that. And each of those solves a problem in the moment. But 5 years down the road, the company has half a dozen systems running side by side, and no one really has a full holistic view of how learning is happening at that one particular place. So, when we say learning, unified learning, we mean one platform that manages everything across that. Learners feel this fragmentation more than anybody else. So, like, if you can imagine a new hire, you'd start onboarding in one system, but if you want sales training, you'd log in somewhere else. If you want compliance, that's a third system. That experience is really confusing for people, and it signals to the learner that training is really an afterthought instead of being integrated as a seamless part of the fabric of their work life. So for partners and customers, it can also be pretty painful. They might not even know where to start or that a system exists, and that lack of consistency can really create a perception that the company itself is disorganized. So on the organizational side, I think the fragmentation creates massive inefficiencies as well. So that's another thing that we're seeing a lot of. Every system requires IT support. Every update requires duplication of content. Every new program feels like reinventing the wheel. And reporting really becomes a nightmare because the data is all scattered all over the place. And you can't get a single view of how learning connects to the business goals. So the trends that are pushing towards unification are really clear. Learners are expecting this consumer grade experience, like the personalization that they see when they log on to a Netflix or a Spotify. Businesses are under pressure to show ROI, which means that they need clean data. And with the pace of change, especially with AI and all these other technologies, which we've talked about in previous episodes, you can't really afford to be slowed down by the systems that don't talk to each other. So unified learning is both, a learner experience play and an operational strategy. It gives organizations one foundation to deliver consistent learning, scale it globally, make it relevant, and in ways that siloed systems really never could do, never will do. And that setup, it sets up a natural follow-up. Like the question would be like, who really benefits inside the organizations once you truly unify? The answer is everybody, really and truly, because at the end of the day, you're solving multiple problems by getting rid of multiple systems and bringing it into one unified experience. So I think you solve a lot of learner problems that way, definitely solve a lot of admin problems that way. And then, it's often an unsung hero of the whole equation, but the IT part of it is a big deal too. So I think we're seeing a lot of trends towards this unification. We're seeing a lot of people get really excited about it. We're seeing a lot of people feel the need for it. And I think that it's ultimately something that everybody's going to have to do. We're going to have to bring everything into one because otherwise you're just going to have all of these little, separate ecosystems out there, and they're not necessarily all going to be able to talk to each other.
No, absolutely. Now, you mentioned benefits, but can you drill down a bit deeper and kind of go into the specific benefits for kind of individual users such as L&D, authors, admins, and instructors, kind of a individual use case?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with authors. In a fragmented environment, authors spend a lot of time repackaging content. So they might create a course and then find out it doesn't load properly in one of the systems. So they have to reformat it. Maybe instead of a SCORM packet, they convert it to a video file, or they just give you the PowerPoint or whatever the case may be. Then in another system, it requires different metadata. By the time they've pushed it out everywhere they need to go, weeks have gone by. In a unified system, the author builds once, delivers everywhere. And that saves them time. It reduces errors. It also makes experimentation possible. So if you want to pilot a new type of course, like micro learning or video snippets. Like you can do that quickly because you're not maintaining multiple publishing workflows simultaneously. For administrators, I think the shift is pretty dramatic as well. Instead of logging into multiple dashboards, downloading all these spreadsheets and then spending hours reconciling all the reports, everything's centralized. You can get your learners segmented by role, by geography, assign courses with just a couple of clicks, and the platform will deliver the right experience to the right audience. And that really frees you up to give a lot of your bandwidth to focus on higher level tasks like improving programs instead of just putting out fires all day. And it also IT also benefits from this because they're only one platform that they have to manage, secure, integrate, and update. So that's something that always keeps those guys happy. From an instructor point of view, and I differentiate author from instructor in the fact that author is someone who's building the online courseware. Instructor may be somebody who does like the synchronous learning for webinars and things like that. The benefits for them is how they design and deliver the content. If we think about blended learning, before unification, you might have a live session that's tracked in one system, pre-work that's downloaded and looked at from another, and then you do reinforcement assignments in a third. Learners always fall through the cracks when that happens, and instructors are left chasing down, well, who did what? Did somebody complete this? Did they show up to this? Did they download this like they were supposed to? With a unification push, all of that sits in one journey. Learners know exactly where they are, instructors see the full picture, and the quality of the program tends to improve. But the bigger takeaway is that each role saves time, reduces headaches, and it lets them focus on outcomes instead of logistics. And once you understand those role-based benefits, the question then is, what features actually matter when you're choosing a unified platform. So just knowing that all of this stuff works out of the box is a huge headache relief. And then you can focus on the features and tools that you actually want to deliver to your audience.
Speaking of which, that was my next question.
Sure.
What are the key features or functionalities that organizations should look for in a unified learning platform to kind of unify the creation, curation, and delivery process?
So I think that it's different for every organization. So let me preface that. But in general, if we want to put out like a general rule, I think I would look for 6 things that I would highlight. First would be a consistent learner experience. The learner shouldn't have to figure out what systems they need for different things. Whether you're onboarding as an employee, getting certified as a partner, or exploring new features as a customer, it should really feel like one connected experience, one, unified journey across the board. Second would be flexible content management. A unified platform has to support a full range of content types. So that can include things like video, SCORM files, documents, virtual classrooms, even hands-on learning, synchronous in-person learning, and make it really simple to update. If the content management is clunky, adoption is going to suffer because people are going to constantly run into outdated materials. The administrators are constantly going to be playing catch up with trying to get all of their information to propagate across different systems, things like that. Constantly having to work with different versions of things, we have to use a video here, we use a SCORM here, we use a PowerPoint here. It's just a mess. So having that flexible content management, a single platform that can run all of these things seamlessly is extremely important. Third, and I think this is actually, I say this third, but I probably should have said this first, and that's personalization. This is one of the biggest ones, especially in the age of artificial intelligence. So once all of your learner and skill data lives in one place, the platform needs to be able to take a look at that information and start making intelligent recommendations. That makes training more relevant. It keeps learners engaged. And it's all because it's delivering on what I would call an expected experience. And I mentioned this a little bit before, but if you think about when we log on to a shopping site, for example, and we go into, look for, I don't know, let's say towels for the bathroom, and we do that, and we expect automatically, okay, this thing knows what I've bought in the past, so it should surface that up to the top. It knows what brands that I look at the most, so those should also surface closer to the top. It knows what brands I've returned in the past, so it knows what not to include. Things like that. Same thing with like music streaming and stuff like that. Like when I go there, if I go there and all of a sudden it is recommending to me, not let's no, we're gonna date myself a little bit, okay, but that's okay. Like, let's say it's recommending to me modern hip hop music, right? The stuff that's coming out today.
Yeah.
Probably not my jam. I'm more of a 90s and 80s hip hop kind of guy, or I don't know, John Cicada from the 80s, stuff like that. Like that,
Oh yeah. Oh my
that's more my
gosh.
speed, right? So like it's serving me up John Cicada. I'm like, hey, I'm going down this rabbit hole. I'm going to listen to this guy, for the next couple of hours, or a playlist that's comprised of music like that for the next 2 hours. If it starts throwing me a bunch of stuff that I don't like, that's an easy way for me to tune out. The same is true for learning. If you go there, yes, there are always going to be things that are mandatory for compliance reasons and things like that. And that absolutely should be surfaced first. But after that, if you want to make learning sticky and you want to make learning a part of your culture overall, I think what you have to do is you have to make this personalized experience something that is a norm for these people. I always like to say that my goal anytime with a learning program is to make the LMS like someone's Yahoo homepage in the 90s. Like we put everything on those, everything that we cared about, the weather, the sports, the local headlines, all that stuff. Same thing for an LMS today. Give me things that are relevant to my role. Give me things that are relevant to the skills I want to learn, the products I need to know, the role that I aspire to. Give me a path to get there. Give me a clear outline of the career trajectory of somebody in my space that I can follow. Give me peer recommendations based on people who have already been promoted so I can see what did they learn? How did they do? What are they interested in? All of that drives relevancy. And as long as the content is relevant, you will keep people coming back for more. But if it's just a box they have to check, then I think that we can just kind of throw it out the window.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
Fourth would be, and this goes back a little bit more to the admin side, robust audience management. At enterprise scale, especially, you need to be able to target the content by role, by geography, by business unit, or even individual goal, kind of like that personal thing I was just talking about. A unified platform should give you those levers without forcing complex workarounds. You should not have to, put it together with tape and bubble gum, as my grandfather used to say. You should be able to just go ahead and do it. I should be able to say, okay, this content is for this group, this content is for these people interested in these skills, etc. And that should be a very easy, almost drag and drop like approach. Fifth would be support for migration and consolidation. So most companies are not starting fresh when they come to the table to discuss unification. They're replacing multiple LMSs and they need a way to sort of navigate out of that chaotic soup because that's exactly what it is. When you have all of these systems, putting everything into one basket at first can seem very, very daunting. And I've been someone who's managed a multi-platform migration before. It is unbelievably stressful to think, what if you lose this data? What if you lose, this content, all of this stuff? So a strong unified solution helps you do that. It helps you do that in clear, articulable phases. And then it gives you the tools that makes it smoother or gives you access to people or processes that make it easier for you to manage. The final one is going to be an integration. And I think that's probably another one of the must-haves, especially in today's day and age, because these platforms that we learn from, they're not all in one, like learning management, talent management, like all of these things. Generally, it's just like it's a learning platform, it's a talent platform, it's a marketing platform, whatever it might be. So we have to have those things talk to one another, and we know that learning is more effective when it happens, quote unquote, within the flow of work. And so that means being able to surface training inside the systems that people already use, like Salesforce for sellers or customer portals for external audiences. And it also means that we are able to put information in and get information out of that system and into the other systems that we use. So our, HR systems,
Yeah.
marketing systems, all that stuff. We have to be able to create clean, flowing pipes between all of that stuff. Because when those features come together, the platform feels more cohesive. It feels more scalable. And from the learner's perspective, it feels like it's more centered on me. And that's where I think, a lot of these platforms fall short is not having all of those tubes connected to make sure that that data is easily flowing between all the systems, and then not making sure that all that data is, where it's supposed to be at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think integration is so often overlooked too. People, I think, naturally assume, oh, everything will just fit into the tech stack and work well with each other, but that's not, that's not always the case. So I think,
No.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely right. I mean, people they make assumptions like that all the time, and maybe I think that's a problem with the iPhone and the iPhoneization of the world. Like people are just like they expect to swipe up and
Hmm.
it unlocks. They just expect that level of usability for everything. That's not the case. A lot of these systems are old. They have legacy code stacks and all these things, and so to integrate them with these modern learning platforms is oftentimes really difficult. And you need a robust API that everything can plug into, or you need systems engineers that understand how these things talk to each other. It's not a flip a switch and you're done type of process normally.
Absolutely not. Now, I want to get more specific with now we talked about features and functionalities, but how does Adobe specifically support organizations who want to, reap the rewards of a unified learning technology approach? And this is a two-parter. Can you
Sure.
maybe share one or two customer examples with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So Adobe Learning Manager is the product that I work on and evangelize for. And it was built to unify learning across all these different things that we're talking about. So across employees, partners, customers, et cetera. And the learner sees a consistent front end experience, no matter what their role. Administrators can manage everything in one place with fewer clicks, fewer systems to reconcile, all that kind of stuff. And IT supports one system instead of several, which reduces cost and also reduces risk. The migration is where Adobe puts a lot of emphasis. Many customers come to us with multiple LMSs in place, and we guide them through that consolidation. And that might mean phasing migrations by business unit or audience, auditing content libraries to reduce duplication, or even setting up taxonomy so that personalization works effectively once everything is on one system. One of the recent webinars that I did really touched on this, where I spoke with Lauren Sullivan from MathWorks. MathWorks is a recent convert to Adobe Learning Manager, and they went through this. They had legacy systems in place, and they wanted to move over to Adobe Learning Manager. And we worked with them the whole time throughout that migration, not only to make sure that the tech stack was in place, but to make sure that they understood the phased migration process. We had people that were working on technical solutions to make sure all of the plugs were plugged in at the end of the day. And ultimately, it was one of the smoothest implementations that we've ever done. And quite frankly, they got to the finish line a lot faster than many people internally expected them to, simply because we had the right people and process in place. And I think that's something that's really invaluable that you can't put a price on in many cases. So that's something that, to me, when I was hearing the story as Lauren was telling it, it was really compelling to hear how our teams really went to the mat to help them understand what that process was going to look like, how long it should take, what are the steps that you need to go through, and that's not always clear. I was just a learning designer when I first started doing migrations like this. I would have had no idea all the things that I actually needed to check off before I made the migration, and so our team's really good at that. But once unified, Learning Manager uses AI to personalize content, to recommend, things like skill paths and surface learning where it's most useful. And so it's not just about making that training available to folks, putting it in a catalog. That's easy to do. Our system is really good about making it timely and relevant. So when you go to the Adobe Learning Manager homepage as a learner, you can actually give it input. You can say, hey, these are the things I am interested in at my organization. And that could be a role that you're interested in moving to. It could be a skill you're interested in achieving. It could be a product that you're interested in, up leveling your knowledge on. All of those things, you give it that input, immediately your homepage starts to be customized with learning that is relevant to things you are interested in. We also surface a row of content on the homepage by default that is called trending in your network, which is essentially like a what's hot on Netflix kind of thing. So what are people around you looking at? What are they taking and giving good ratings to? All that kind of stuff. And that's going to show up in a row that makes it like more likely that you'll go in and dive into that. And then the last part would be, I think, our social capabilities. So we see a lot of when organizations enable our social learning component, I think it really sees an uptick in engagement. You really see that people are able to get more out of the content because they're able to talk about it. We live in this post, weirdness of 2020 and beyond world where we have people all over the place.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's not as easy as walking to the break room and saying like, "Hey man, did you go to that HR seminar or what?" Like it's not that easy anymore. You have to give people ways to talk about it. And I don't think that people do that by default on things like Slack and Teams and like I don't believe that those things, as much as they can be like a water cooler for different things. Like for instance, we have a channel in our internal Adobe Slack for people who are interested in sneakers, like I am. And so yes, we go in there and we talk about sneakers every once in a while. But it's not, we don't have, I don't see a whole lot of them centered around learning. But in the LMS, we internally at Adobe, we use Adobe Learning Manager for all of our employees. You see people talking, you see people chatting. And there's a gamified part of that too. So people can become like subject matter experts through our gamification system. And I think people appreciate that as well, because then you can go in and you can see, oh, well, Justin has posted so much content about learning and development leadership or upskilling employees with AI. Like this is the person I need to go to ask a specific question about this course or this module. And that makes it really, easier for them. It removes some of the friction. And then finally, Adobe also integrates learning into the broader like digital ecosystem. If you're using Salesforce, you can surface training right there in the CRM. If you're building customer portals using Adobe Experience Manager, learning can appear there. Like you can have your internal intranet that looks just like it always has, but now instead of just like, click here to view course, there could actually be course tiles there, access to, a little micro learning, a video, whatever it might be, that can all be driven right there. The learning doesn't feel like a separate system. It feels like it's part of, something that they use every day. And I think
Yeah.
that's really important.
Kind of an in the flow approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, keeping it top of mind
Yeah.
and putting it right there. You asked me also for customer examples.
Yes.
So I think one of my favorite examples is Tintri. They're a technology company that needed to train employees, partners, and customers. So it's like our full use case.
Hmm.
Everybody's in the boat. Before Adobe Learning Manager, their training was spread across multiple different systems, and they found it very hard to manage. Now, with Learning Manager, they've been able to build over 30 skill paths that serve all three of those groups.
Wow.
For employees, onboarding blends a 70% online course with 30% hands-on labs and shadowing. So a very diverse, blended experience for the employees that I think really is something that I would enjoy personally. The
Mhm.
system captures both types of learning so they can track progress and improve the program over time. Partners, certification programs live in the same environment. So partners go to the same portal as the employees. They can see all of their certifications. It makes it easy for, their resellers and technical partners to access training. For customers, Tentry uses Learning Manager to offer product education, so they can get more value out of the technology they've purchased. So when they buy, new software products or whatever, they can go to Tentry's, a customer academy, and they can start learning about that product immediately, which removes some of that friction as well. There's not a user manual to get into. You don't have to spend a lot of time, going through a virtual chat bot or something like that. And they've now been able to scale this to over 550 employees, over 600 partners, and some odd 400 some odd customers from this one platform. So the skill
Goodness.
paths are, yeah, I mean it's really cool, right? To be able to
Yeah.
do all of that from one centralized place. And they've tied their skill paths. They're tiered at foundational, intermediate, and expert levels, which helps managers route customer requests to the right support engineers based on the skills. The gamification encourages the learners to push further. They give them badges. There's point leaderboards, so the engagement's pretty high. And then again, that unification story, what used to be scattered across all of these different platforms and programs now lives on one unified system, which is, for the administrator at least, very flexible, very scalable, and very easy to manage. So I think, Tentri is one of those that it's not on like a massive scale necessarily. It's not like, like for instance, Domino's uses Adobe Learning Manager to train 200,000 franchisee employees. So it's not like at that level of scale, but it's crossing all of these different bridges at once, which I would argue is just as hard to do because,
Yeah,
you
totally.
have,
Yeah.
yeah, because three people, three groups, three different goals, three different, personality types. I mean, it's just all over the place. So to be able to seamlessly deliver content to all three of those is a huge win. And then another strong story that we have is the Microsoft Expert Zone. And this is one, like if you've ever been to a webinar of mine, you probably heard me talk about this because this is one of my favorite client stories that we have. This is their global training portal for retail and technical support partners. It covers multiple disciplines like sales skills, customer service, technical troubleshooting, product knowledge, and it serves all these different learners at different levels, from new retail associates to like seasoned support engineers. And their experience is highly gamified. So when you log in first to the expert zone, the first thing it asks you is, what are you interested in? So it gives you a list of everything that they have the capability to teach you, and you can select as much of it as you want. And then when you do that, your homepage is then customized with that content specific to what you told it you're interested in. And you can sift through that. They give you things like YouTube video recommendations from the homepage. So, even extending it off of the platform. Everything you do is gamified and you're on a leaderboard against other people in your group. So imagine competing against other retail associates, competing against your fellow engineers and things like that. And you can earn points, you can rank up, and you can unlock, certain like rewards and things like that. And that really helps to keep people motivated, but it also ensures that Microsoft's products are represented accurately in the retail and support environments that they have that are all customer facing. So, really the key is that both Tentri and Microsoft, while very different in terms of, what they're doing, they're both doing more than just delivering content. They're using a unified platform to train across multiple audiences, roles, and levels while keeping the experience consistent for everybody. Tentri demonstrates how one system can support employees, partners, and customers all at once. And Microsoft shows you how you can power a global partner program, and both can be consistent and engaging at different types of scale, but both at scale. And I think both of those are great examples of both unified learning and also the power of what, Adobe can bring to the table from a learning management perspective.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, goodness gracious.
I can talk about this all day.
I know you could. Thank you so much again, Justin, for joining us. As always, it's enlightening and inspiring.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Another big thanks to Justin. It's always great having him on the show. If you'd like to learn more about him and the events he'll be attending and his podcast, you can check out his LinkedIn profile. It's Justin Seeley. And if you'd like to learn more about Adobe Learning Manager, you can check out their website where you can also sign up for a free trial. And thank you to you, listener, for tuning in. Hope to see you back next time.